Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, once again joined by Zepsi. We both do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but we don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. We're just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. Welcome, Zep.
How's it going, Brandon?
It's going good. The crypto markets are on fire, which we'll cover down in the market section. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So the first thing I wanted to cover is our wallet ecosystem. There's all kinds of exciting things going on, starting off with Arculus. So Arculus is a really innovative platform that has a user interface on your phone, but you can't access your wallet without a card that stores your private keys. So it has that extra layer of security. What were your thoughts around Arculus?
Yeah, I think even stretching beyond what is clearly an innovative tech is having spoken to the marketing not proof of concept, marketing contact over at Arculus. This was very much a community-driven integration. There's enough people within their ecosystem, within their community, that had heard of Hedera, that wanted to participate in the Hedera network, but who couldn't up until now. And so, this is an ecosystem that's growing. They've got a strong community. They've got certain influences behind them as well. And I think just seeing this drive, this grassroots drive, is an indicator, A, of the outreach of Hedera, B, of the strength of our own community, but C, also that we are seeing this greater accessibility sort of month by month coming in. When you compare it to sort of a year and a half ago, when we didn't have any wallets, and then we suddenly got Hashpack, which is incredible wallets, of course, one of the best user experiences in the space, and then of course Walla wallets and Blade wallets. But now there's others coming in that are pre-existing wallets that support other networks, which are actually getting pressured by their own existing clientele to integrate us. And I think that's a really positive indicator of our growth for sure.
Yeah, no question about that. Decent also came out with some news. They have supported Hedera for a very long time with HBAR and then some fungible tokens, but Decent's going to expand its support to all HTS assets out there. And their CEO said, "We're proud to be part of a growing Hedera ecosystem and to help facilitate the adoption of HTS assets by providing our users with a secure and user-friendly platform to interact with the network." As the largest hardware wallet in Korea, we understand the importance of providing users with a secure and user-friendly platform, and this integration enables us to expand our capabilities and offer even greater peace of mind to our customers. We look forward to working with Hedera to help drive innovation in the blockchain space and make it more accessible to everyone. So Zeb, one of the things that struck me about this is I have a Decent wallet, software wallet on my phone, but I didn't even know they had a hardware wallet. So it's great to see them coming to bear with some of these additional security mechanisms. What do you think?
Definitely. I mean, the Hedera token service in the last year, or going by the Q4 Masari reports, has seen massive adoption compared to where it was. I mean, it was 700% increase, over 700% increase year on year. And of course, that's a testament to, some of the new projects, some of the new innovations within our ecosystem, i.e. DeFi with, SourceSwap, Pangolin, and so on and so forth, and also NFTs. And so we have this new crypto assets flowing through our token service that we didn't have before, that until now hasn't really had the sort of security that is required for a user to interact with the network without any sort of overhead worries, or at least minimized. And so to have the leading blockchain wallet in South Korea come out here and say that, they're fully integrating with the token service is a big win for us. As we've said before, the hash graph clearly is different to the blockchain within the family of distributed ledger technology, but it's not as easy for, say, a company to integrate Ethereum or Cardano, because these are all similar data structures, similar components, similar sort of drag and drop that doesn't exist on Hedera. So to have this wallet pioneer this token service integration, I think is very exciting for us. Of course, all wallets are competitive. And so I'd like to think this is going to be sort of the kick up the back of Ledger, perhaps, to accelerate them towards a full HTS integration that, we really want to see. Just all in all, great news for driving competitiveness, and great news for hopefully more and more wallets integrating the HTS just throughout the ecosystem.
Yeah, and huge shout out to all our, community-led homegrown wallets. We have Walla Wallet, we have Citadel, which is our hardware wallet solution. Of course, Hashpack is tearing it up, especially in the DeFi space. And we talked last week about Blade Wallet and how they have their dual network support. So I caught up with Ince. He is their chief creative officer to give us some more information. So, what is Blade Wallet's strategy around your announcement of dual network support?
It's a great question. So the strategy for Blade Labs really is that we are positioned as a B2B to C enterprise solution provider. And, we have this mission that we keep on saying, which is we want to onboard the next billion users. So having this kind of dual network wallet that we've announced recently is truly a part of this kind of strategy, the core part of our strategy. Essentially, as a B2B wallet, what we do is we're trying to provide solutions to the partners that we work with. So the enterprises, we're definitely a partner-led business. So enterprises such as Karate Combat, Astronova, and Koala Hash Club have helped us actually get to this point where we were prioritizing this dual network capability essentially for the partners. But being called B2B to C, we are very well recognizing the fact that we have a consumer product. Our wallet, our Blade wallet, is a consumer product. So essentially, what we're doing is creating these utilities and improving our products with our partners, keeping in mind that we have this consumer product as well. So we definitely then have to prioritize which one of these utilities we want to build into the consumer wallet and have that kind of interface. So truly, this dual network is a core part of our strategy and essentially is a product of the work that we're doing with our partners.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And I guess that B2B might come into this next question a little bit, but there are many wallets out there that support multiple assets. Why is this different?
So that's, again, another great question. And I think it's something that we were quite careful when we were mentioning it on our releases and mentioning it on our socials. We are a dual network wallet and not a multi-chain wallet. So what we wanted to do, and that nuance really is about really trying to emphasize that we don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. We really, really wanted to focus on being experts on these two networks. And when we look at the networks, obviously this may be a bit biased because we are Hedera built and proud to be that. We look at Hedera being this kind of best-in-class technology. There's fantastic, when I'm speaking to some of the use cases which aren't Web3 and more Web2, we talk about Hedera and talk about the fact that, the speed of processing transactions, the cost, the scalability, the security on there. So those amazing parts of technology are there, and we feel like there's not enough awareness around it. So having this ability and this unique technology to Hedera and being able to build this dual network wallet, we're now pointed towards what we would really consider, and I think many consider, the most popular blockchain network out there with Ethereum. So being able to approach and touch these two audiences is quite exciting for us. We ideally want to be in a situation where I feel like there's nothing more powerful than being able to experience the two. So this dual network wallet for us is, I would say, our first step towards that. From a B2B perspective as well, because we have a lot of our partners who are either already engaged in it, such as Karate Combat, and partners are very interested in utilizing this technology, utilizing it through our different solutions, be it SDK, white label solutions, to the actual B2C wallet that we have right now.
Can you just expand a little bit on how this is good for the Hedera ecosystem?
Absolutely. I think I kind of touched upon it just a little bit earlier. I am a massive fan of the Hedera network, a massive fan of all of the fantastic capabilities and utilities that it has. And I do believe that the one thing that is missing is the awareness, like enough eyeballs on Hedera itself. So again, I feel like the dual network capability and functionality is like our first step in providing people or users, as well as businesses and communities from Ethereum, to experience Hedera with less friction. I remember my first experience when I experienced Hedera, and I used to have a Metamask wallet and experience all the wonderful and very popular DAFs and marketplaces on Ethereum itself. Going on to Hedera and just, the simple things, like, for example, things happening within seconds, transactions being fractions of the cost of what they are on the Ethereum network, I think there's nothing more powerful than having that experience. And I suddenly turned from, a Web3 novice into this Hedera evangelist because I'd suddenly seen this difference. And what we want to be able to do is actually translate that to others. So again, I think the experience that people will have now of a lower friction dual network wallet and being able to experience the Hedera technology, I think is only going to be a benefit, hopefully, for the network.
Yeah, it seems like it's a theme talking to a lot of the different teams that I'm working with, that they want to be a gateway to get people to start to use Hedera, or even you can call it a Trojan horse. You start to use Hedera and then you just fall in love with that technology. But Ince, we really appreciate you coming by today. And of course, for all the great work that you do and the rest of the Blade Wallet team. So thank you.
Cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for your time, Brandon. And thank you all to the whole community.
Great to hear from Ince, and great to hear from Blade again. We're so lucky to have, I think, so many high quality wallets within our ecosystem. And like you said, all with their own sort of USP. And with Blade this time around, with this dual wallet integration, it's completely novel within our ecosystem. And, of course, Blade is attracting the more enterprise side of the ecosystem. And I think this is really important when targeting the Ethereum bases, because of course, Ethereum are also targeting enterprise, but they have certain bottlenecks that Hedera doesn't have. And so for me, if I was a developer, if I was a user, whatever I was, and I got offered the Blade Wallet experience, which I'm sure will only get better and better, and I could use that to, work within Metamask or whatever application it is, and then I saw that there was that option for Hedera, the curiosity would get over me, and then I'd be, within a new ecosystem. Hopefully when, the MetaMask integration is fully there and perhaps we're on something like Uniswap, that'll be the real turning point for, users seeing the efficiency between Hedera and Ethereum in the same way that they saw it with Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum. They'll even see another seismic shift of the efficiency of Hedera over, say, Binance. So yeah, to me, this is the start of a lot of new liquidity being attracted over, and I have full confidence in the Blade Labs team in executing it.
And as you said, they're all competitors. All the wallets are competitors to some extent, but they are kind of finding their own lanes. We have Citadel and Walla Wallet focus on, hardcore HBAR holders. We have DeFi support mainly through Hashpack, and Blade is supporting this enterprise focus, taking on the torch that Hedera carries themselves. So that's exactly what Rob and I talked about during this week's Shark Bites. So listen in. So how's your week going, Rob?
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, it's been pretty busy. Lots of things on, lots of things to talk about today as well.
Same here. It's been really busy on my side as well, but it's good to talk to you. So Hedera is often thought of as an enterprise-focused platform. Of course, anybody can use it, but enterprise, it gets boxed in often. But, what are some of your enterprise use cases? So we're talking about the big stuff here that has either already been deployed or is planning on deploying on Hedera that has you most excited.
There are so many things. I mean, I'm an enterprise guy. I've been building enterprise systems for decades, financial services systems, payment systems. And it's what we all say, isn't it? When we talk about Hedera, Hedera is an enterprise grade distributed ledger technology. That's what we all say. But what does it mean? Enterprise is kind of a tough thing to define. Startups can be unicorns. Enterprise can be huge, organizations, multinational, but they can also be very focused. I like to think of the use cases, the enterprise use cases, though, as being a lot more complex than the laser-focused startup ones. I think one of the beauties of Hedera is that we've got these native services that are composable. They can be reused in many different ways to address these large, complex use cases. If we think about something like supply chain, think about Avery Dennison driving all this network traffic. It's using the Hedera consensus service to do logging, to do verification of data points in a similar way to what ServiceNow are doing as well. And two big governing council members using the Hedera consensus service in this particular way. But then you've got the Hedera token service, so you can then bundle up all those data points into a provenance that is tokenized, that is then attached to something which may be a real world asset, maybe something a lot more virtual. And then you've got the smart contract service, which is misunderstood because we come from a blockchain, EVM, Solidity smart contract space. But actually, it's secret sauce. It's the connective tissue. It's the unique part of the Hedera smart contract service is its ability to orchestrate calls to the other services. So you've got this really sophisticated mechanism for bringing together Hedera Consensus Service, Hedera Token Service via the smart contract service, or entirely without it. So with app nets, with a private layer, and enterprises love their privacy. They love to protect their commercial business logic. You can do that as well on Hedera as well. So it's not like a blockchain where everything is in the clear. Everything is kind of open and can be seen, which has its own strength, of course, in the Web3 space. You have the ability to actually abstract and make private your business logic. So with all these tools in our toolbox, we can build really complex use cases. So, I've mentioned supply chain. That's a really good one, where you can create digital twins of assets, of goods. You can carry all the data points that are the provenance for that particular product and thing. And then you can track and trace it down the supply chain. And in the early days of blockchain in 2013, 2014, that could only really be done, or enterprises were only comfortable doing that with a private permission blockchain. This is why Hyperledger and IBM blockchain and all the others were focusing on private and permissioned blockchains. They've kind of gone away now. There is no need anymore to implement in that sort of way, because actually the hard thing is not delivering the technology, although it's quite cumbersome and heavy for most of the use cases that it's been applied to. But the Hedera Consensus Service, the Hedera Token Service actually take away the need for all of that operational expenditure on a private permission blockchain. So supply chain is an ideal use case really for looking at these kind of complex interrelationships and the ways that Hedera can utilize it. And we have real world use cases, real world examples of this in things like Avery Dennison, the world's biggest organization for RFID tags, huge logistics company, and on the governing council, specifically really to drive this transitional agenda from Web 2 to Web 3, because they are progressively thinking about what it will take to do that. And that's a real good characterization, I think, of enterprise, going back to that first point about what is enterprise. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I think it's kind of, these are incumbent businesses, usually successful ones, because they've kind of grown to that point where we consider them to be enterprise, but with a board level strategy which wants to transition from Web 2 to Web 3. And most enterprise use cases are somewhere in between. So it's what we refer to as Web 2.5. So, it might be the first step on that journey. And that's usually with Hedera, the Hedera Consensus Service, because it's so easy to integrate with. It's so easy to demonstrate the utility of the Hedera network by using the Hedera Consensus Service. It takes a matter of hours now to do just that and get all the benefit of a public distributed ledger, whether or not that's for auditability, for sharing facts with business relationships, with counterparties, with auditors, with regulators. The need for trusted and verifiable data points by businesses are legion. There are so many that you look at, and when we talk about in the future all businesses building on Hedera, that's kind of where I'm thinking, because the Hedera Consensus Service is that natural starting point that all businesses can and should use. And as we know, we'll scale without even breaking a sweat to achieve that. Those are the use cases I think we're seeing a lot of by enterprise now, because it's that first step on that Web 2 to Web 3 transition. And then we'll talk more about this, I guess, but my payments background suggests that I do like the financial services use cases, what the banks are doing with stable coins, what we're seeing in the CBDC space, a natural set of use cases for private permissioned blockchains, and that's where we've seen most CBDCs go. But now hybridizing that kind of wholesale CBDC use case into something which is more public and scalable at the retail end, the retail uses of CBDCs, and then that crossover into stablecoins, which are all by definition issued on public blockchains. So that's really interesting. But I see stablecoins as a primitive, just as an asset that can be used, as a capability within other use cases. So I think we'll see over the next year some really interesting uses of stablecoins in insurance, in trade finance, supply chain finance. So again, another crossover between supply chain and financing of supply chains, more complex relationships, which we'll be very, very well placed to do. And delivery versus payment handovers, within the supply chain that removes inefficiencies within that kind of those legs. And then finally, ESG. I think ESG is the most obvious one of those three for us to really tackle, really go in hard on. I know Wes and the Sustainable Impact Fund team have one of their goals, making ESG reporting credible. Listen to Wes, he'll list his 5 goals, and that's the final one. And it's the final one because ESG is so environmental, social, and governance aspects of corporate non-financial risk accounting. That means that all businesses across the planet need to be able to do that and demonstrate how they're addressing their impact through reduction, avoidance, and offsetting. And it's very, very hard to do. Very hard to do in terms of tracking of emissions and tracking of impact across all of the sustainable development goals. So what the Guardian infrastructure does is enable that to be addressed in a way that makes your accounting verifiable, auditable, and can demonstrate to your stakeholders, your shareholders, and your customers that you're doing the right thing, either voluntarily or because you're regulated and working within compliance markets. So supply chain, finance and payments, and ESG, I think, are my top 3 of many. What are yours?
Well, I'll be pretty quick. I have 2 that come to mind right off the bat. Certainly Coupon Bureau, right? Mm-hmm. We've been waiting on that for years. I put it kind of in the same boat as App.io, both because of the throughput, but also because with App.io, and we talked about this a few months ago, we knew that it was coming, but it took so long to actually come to market that I didn't even know if it was going to come to fruition. I didn't know if it was actually going to come to market. So it's in the same kind of boat. It's been happening for years. We know it's coming. It's going to be incredible when it gets here. But I put it in that same camp of I'll believe it when I see it. But also because it's almost too amazing to be true, right? To have the new standards of coupons in the United States be based off of Hedera. You talk about a fair amount of the time that all enterprises will use Hedera. They may just not know it. Well, in this case, all people will use Hedera. They may just not know it. So it's the same boat there, and the amount of scale will dwarf where App.io is, at least right now. Of course, App.io could scale further in the future, but the amount of throughput we could see from that one Coupon Bureau use case would be amazing. And then the other one, like you said, it's kind of hard to define what enterprise is, but a medium-sized business that started building on Hedera, Karate Combat. But also, I like Karate Combat because it's a proof of concept for some really big enterprises out there like NBA and NFL and MLB and things like that. But I like them because they have a really unique, cool product in the fighting world. We had Joe Rogan just talk about it, right? And you don't get more exposure than that, but also because they're doing a lot of the right things, embracing technology, and not just in Web3, but also, how they're utilizing Unreal Engine and that big board behind them that makes those fights so entertaining and engaging to watch. But the Web3 stuff with Hedera, of course, using a fungible token built on Hedera for governance, that's completely new. But I think there's a lot of other either sports teams or sports leagues that are looking at things like that. And then the up-only gaming that's going to be coming here just in the next couple months. audience. It really, I think, speaks to that 18 to 34 male cohort who watches MMA and watches fights like that, who also happen to be really interested in crypto. So I think there's going to be some good crossover there, and it's going to get them involved in DeFi. Not one of the biggest enterprises out there, but certainly something that I could see catching fire in the future. Just to get a little bit more theoretical, Rob, what enterprise use cases that haven't seen any movement in the real world yet? You mentioned your top three, and we've seen a fair amount of movement in all of those. But which ones do you want to come to fruition that we haven't really seen gain any traction as of yet?
So we see a lot of use cases come through CorpCom. So Hedera has this corporate utilization committee, and many of them being enterprise, all of them actually being enterprise use cases, take a long time to get into market. I know there has been a general frustration with governing council use cases, but trust me, they're all working on some pretty big business changing, or like I've said, transitional use cases, which are necessarily slow and methodical in terms of their delivery. You need internal business sponsorship, you usually need risk sign off, you need it to align to corporate strategy and product strategy, and then you need to actually get into production without impacting the business and its operation. So that takes a long time, right? So we do see quite a few that are game changing and visionary, and I'm super excited about. None of which I can talk about today. But to answer your question directly, IoT, which we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, I think is probably the most underserved part of the network. We've seen stuff like Neuron, which is really very particular around a set of use cases, and drones, which I think, in the same way as you talked about Karate Combat, blazing a trail in the DAO space and in the utilization of tokens and fungible tokens, and how they're fusing that with martial arts and sports and a particular demographic. That's really exciting. But then you then cross that over into what Starburst are doing with the Juicyverse, and they're under the covers, they're very similar. But one is enterprise because it's got this huge kind of corporate backing, and one is startup, in my mind anyway. But actually the technology is just the same, as it should be. I'm really interested in seeing, because there's a lot of big corporates operating Industry 4.0 type use cases. So by that I mean industrialized applications of IoT devices and control systems that enable their business to operate. We will start seeing very quickly these devices being logged on Hedera consensus service. We'll see them being incentivized in terms of behavior based on algorithms and value transfer. We'll see some great autonomous vehicle type use cases coming along, I'm sure. And this, as we regularly talk about, are core infrastructural layers for big, complex use cases like smart cities. And then, this composability of function and capability then kind of starts coming together, and it almost gathers a life of its own. And then smart cities themselves can be, which are obviously very, very complex interrelationships between many, many parties, can be governed through the sorts of DAO-based organizations that we're just seeing being developed, in small pockets, like Karate Combat, or like some of the other DAO-based projects that are very, very exciting. So all of these things will be coming together over the course of the next few years. And, this rightly alluded to something like Coupon Bureau being dwarfing the amount of transactions that we're currently seeing. That is the next step change. That is the next thing that will dwarf the last step. And when we look back, over time, we'll say, well, what's that little blip? Oh, that was Avery Dennison, right? And now we're up here somewhere. And we'll still be, settling with finality under 5 seconds. So it's, these are the things that are going to start kind of all coming together, but it takes time with enterprise. But I'm convinced we're on the right track. Oh, and
Yeah.
the other the point about Coupon Bureau is it's a great use case because the voucher systems and voucher schemes in the US are kind of replicated everywhere in the world. Maybe not in the same way. Maybe and I've seen in Asia Pacific, it's done, but in a lot more digital way already, but Web2 digital way. So there's a lot that can be done, whether it be coupons or vouchers or reward points, discount mechanisms. All of these things are very enterprise in aspect because when I was at PwC and leading the blockchain practice there, I used to say that rewards was everyone's second favorite use case because every business has a need for customer engagement, has a desire to inspire loyalty, and the reward mechanisms and the vouchers and the coupons are all part of that. And to date, blockchain hasn't serviced those use cases very well at all because it doesn't scale. First generations of blockchain cannot do reward points, de minimis, because it won't scale. Well, guess what? We have a distributed ledger now that does. And so all of these second favorite use cases are coming to the fore. And I think that one of the things that we will see over the next year or two, and we're seeing it just starting with the likes of Sail and Bamboo Meta. I'm working on some very exciting things down in Australia, which hope to be able to announce over the course of the next month or two, which are very rewards focused. We know that Alex Russman, through his Metaverse Fund, is all about customer engagement. So there's a lot of being done in that space as well with big enterprise, with big corporates. And it's something that Swells Labs are focused on through their enterprise accelerator engineering teams that are bringing this capability to market. So lots going on in the customer engagement space as well. Lots to be really excited about.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of punctuate this, I think my favorite that is kind of theoretical, that it doesn't seem like is being pursued, is now we do have micropayment solutions in Drop and things like that, but I'd want to see it used by YouTube. They've looked at ways to get out of the ad-based model and move into like YouTube Red, I think it was called at one point. I don't know what it's called now, if it's a YouTube Prime or whatever they're trying to do. But I think micropayments fit perfectly into that. I know Ben did a great, shout out to Ben. He did a great YouTube video explaining, what they could do going forward. But, to make us, instead of the product, make us the customer again. I think that would be invaluable. And it just makes so much sense for YouTube, not just for their business model, which I think it could do really well for, but also for the creators as well. So that would certainly be top of my list as far as things that really haven't been pursued yet, but I think could be a huge value add for a company like Google and of course YouTube. All right, so of course whatever, like you've alluded to this a little bit already, but whatever's good for the enterprise can be good for startups as well. So I want you to be ready in the weeks to come to talk about some of your favorite startups as well. Do you have anything else you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
No. I mean, micropayments, we'll have a deep dive on micropayments, I think, coming up fairly soon. It's my passion. It's your passion. It was my kind of Hedera origin story. I think that I know that because I'm very close to some of these things, there are a lot of very exciting things coming along in micropayments, which I see as a capability and not a use case. So micropayments, if you're doing tipping, like you just suggested, you're doing creator account to account or wallet to wallet type tipping, you can do that, very, very easily. Rewards we've just talked to, rewards points, if you can make them as micropayments, perfect. IoT devices where we're incentivizing behavior on this web of devices that we will all have around us, micropayments. All of this comes back down to having a trust layer where value can flow like electricity or data or water, it's a core utility. The theoretical things we can build on top of that are only limited by our imaginations.
Couldn't agree more. And as always, Rob, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brandon. Cheers.
All right, so it's always good, of course, to hear Rob's insights, especially on enterprise, where he's deeply seated right now. But don't think that I get paid by Karate Combat just because I speak so highly about them. But they do have that airdrop that's coming up on May 10th. So certainly sign up for that and get involved because their platform's really cool. And I really think they're going to take the sports world by storm. All right, so another team that is hitting on all cylinders is Dovu. Can you tell us about some of the news that's come out of them?
Yeah, so I mean, last week was huge for Dovu. You know, they transitioned to DAO governance through their Dov token. They created their own fund driven by the Dov token, funding of which is voted on by their stakeholders. We saw them listed on Bittrex, and you know, there was just a landslide of positive news for the network. And if you thought they were going to slow down, they haven't, because this week they announced that their partner, i.e. Undo Carbon, that they announced last week, that leverages the Dovu carbon marketplace, has now been provided a contract with Microsoft. Microsoft obviously do their own due diligence. They were a big part of, I believe, the Interwork Alliance, which was the token standard setter. They created the token taxonomy for things like carbon credits and ESG assets that the Guardian abides by, i.e. the Hedera Guardian. So Microsoft is very firmly linked with our ReFi ecosystem. And to have them issue that vote of confidence in a partner of Dovu, which leverages Dovu, which of course leverages Hedera, is again just bullish sentiment for us all around. And I think there was actually one more piece of news that came out with Dovu, which was, here we are. So they've announced their new DMRV standard. We're in a period now within carbon credits in particular where we need these industry standards that everyone's following. We need to make sure that everyone's measuring carbon in the same way, that they're using the same reporting techniques, and that everyone is abiding by something that can allow us to create, you know, a more well-rounded or discoverable carbon price. And you know, that's one of the main concerns of the Sustainable Impact Fund. That's within one of their core goals. And to see Dovu again pioneering these standards alongside the CIF, I think is just the greatest testament to their team. You know, we're very lucky to have them, and I'm sure their momentum isn't going to slow down anytime soon.
Agreed. And just going back to the Microsoft and Undo news, it dovetails well into something that Rob Allen always talked about, and that's that every enterprise is going to use Hedera. They may just not know it. And of course, Undo issues carbon credits through Dovu, which is built on Hedera. And like you said, they've been awarded a contract from Microsoft to offset their carbon footprint. And though I think, like you said, they do their due diligence, they know that it's built on Hedera. It's an example of how an enterprise could be using Hedera through another company or another solution and not even know it. So it's just great to see that Dovu is doing such a good job of building out that sustainability ecosystem. We also had a blog come out from the HBAR Foundation on the SIF, right?
We did indeed. So Gold Standard and Vera are the two biggest sort of carbon credit reservoirs globally. And so they have been the main source for companies looking to offset their carbon. But the current model that they've abided by has its issues. You know, the reason why a company like Dovu exists, which leverages DLTs like Hedera to achieve more efficient carbon markets, is because so far we've been plagued with things like double spending. You know, you might have one carbon credit that's been created in the Amazonia that's sold 5 times, and therefore it's only retired once, and realistically only 1/5 of that carbon is that, or 1/5 of those sales are actually achieving anything in terms of carbon reduction. And so when you put it on Ledger, you are basically bring a trust layer like Hedera is, you know, the trust layer of the internet, to enable anyone who's purchasing these credits to know in complete soundness that they are in fact buying a credit that is only going to them, and that they are in fact offsetting their carbon. And you know, it's a sound transaction. And so going back to Vera and Gold Standard, they're the two biggest sort of distributors of these carbon credits, but they need to update their tech. And so they've been working with ecosystem partners of ours, including Flow Carbon. Flow Carbon are part of one of their proof of concepts at the moment, but also Wes has been pioneering relationships with them for the last 3 years. Wes Geisenberger being the vice president of sustainability and ESG and head of the Sustainable Impact Fund. And so we've come out with 2 public consultations whereby we've addressed the issues that exist in the current ecosystem of gold standard and Vera, and how digitalization through technologies like Hedera and the Guardian can really, really revolutionize these markets. So I'm excited to see the response there from Gold Standard and Vera, and I'm also excited to see that Flow Carbon, who directly leverage the Guardian, are also in cahoots there with them as well.
Yeah, our refi and sustainability ecosystem is really becoming sprawling. But another fund that we have, in addition to the Sustainable Impact Fund, is a smaller one, the Privacy Fund. And there's a lot of developments going on there. But we want to talk about the Fido Alliance, which Hedera just joined. But before we get into the discussion, I'd like to show a quick video just explaining what the Fido Alliance is.
We live in a technology-enabled world. But there are times when technology lets us down. Take passwords, for instance. For users, they're clumsy, hard to remember, and they need to be changed all the time. For businesses, passwords just don't provide the security necessary to keep important data from falling into the wrong hands. With over 60% of corporate data breaches being caused by stolen or weak user credentials, the time for improvement in authentication standards is now. And that's where the Fido Alliance comes in. Fido, or Fast Identity Online, is a consortium of the world's leading technology companies dedicated to changing the way online authentication is done. We're establishing technical standards that will provide interoperable mechanisms that are far more secure and easier to use than passwords. From biometrics such as fingerprints and facial scans, to second-factor authentication devices, Fido's standards are allowing companies and service providers to better serve their customers and employees. Core to the Fido approach is a personal device, like a smartphone or token, that uses a set of cryptographic keys to securely access Fido-enabled services, such as Google or PayPal. Fido authentication data, such as biometrics, is never stored with the service, which protects the user's privacy and shields their login credentials from hackers. But the best part is that users no longer have to choose between better security or a better user experience. With Fido, they get both. Over 250 interoperable products have been Fido certified, and Fido enabling your product or service is easier than ever. Fido provides a set of universal specifications to build to, and a rich ecosystem of products and services to enable turnkey deployment. Visit our website for more information on how to deploy Fido authentication today. With Fido, our technology-enabled world is finally becoming a safer place.
I don't think the news with the Fido Alliance can be understated. We saw some breadcrumbs from Savo Parabolic HBAR about 9 months ago, whereby he took us on this breadcrumb trail where he believed that Hedera is working on digital identity with Fido and some other partners. And it seems that the start of this breadcrumb trail is coming to fruition. We've joined the Fido Alliance as a sponsor member, putting us alongside other sponsor members such as Twitter, such as Alibaba Group, such as Binance, such as Chase Bank, eBay, HSBC, Huawei, SoftBank, Verizon, Sony, Yahoo, and hundreds more, or not hundreds, tens more. And that caliber of sponsor member, this doesn't just mean we're paying X amount to be part of the team. We are sponsoring working groups. We are shoulder to shoulder with the giants, including the people I've just mentioned. And something very exciting about this is that if you are a working member, working sponsor member for over 6 years, you can then join the board. So the entrance is as a sponsor member, and then you can become a board member. And guess who's on the board member? You've got Apple, you've got Amazon, you've got Intel, and the giants. So we are now fully shoulder to shoulder with these giants, and we are the only layer one on that list. We're the only layer two, no other layer twos. You've got marketplaces like Binance, but I haven't seen any other layer one or layer two shoulder to shoulder with us. So this is, of course, another massive bit of wind in our sails, and I couldn't be more excited about this one, I think.
So we also have some homegrown teams that are working in the privacy and the decentralized identity space that are doing a fair amount of stuff, and they're leveraging Metamask snaps. So what is a snap? A snap is a JavaScript program run in an isolated environment that customizes the wallet experience. Snaps have access to a limited set of capabilities determined by the permissions the user granted them during installation. So what can you do with a snap? A snap can add new API methods to Metamask and support support for different blockchain protocols or modify existing functionalities using the Snap's JSON RPC API. So we have a couple teams that they've discussed that are leveraging this. One is Acor. We've talked to Jim Nasser recently. He's doing amazing work in both this decentralized identity, security, and also the healthcare space. And then we also have Tomb Technologies, which we've covered in the past, that's also leveraging this MetaMask. So Zeb, what were your thoughts on what we saw come out of this?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to see, Hedera being associated with MetaMask in that sense. MetaMask is, of course, as I understand, the biggest sort of user wallet on the Ethereum network and therefore across all networks. So to have our EVM working with MetaMask to any degree is very exciting, and I'm sure those relationships will only continue to be bolstered. But also, this theme of digital identity, of decentralized identity on DLT through Hedera is something that we keep on seeing. We saw Brett doing his article for Davos at the World Economic Forum. We've just seen the Fido Alliance that we've just spoken about. We're seeing this with Acor and MetaMask, and we're seeing it with AidTech. It seems that Hedera is the perfect match for this innovation. And it seems that, the more credibility we get within these higher ups with like Fido, and the more integrations we get with something like MetaMask, the more likely it is that we're going to become the go-to ledger for that sort of use case. This week seems like the week of DIDs, really. So great news.
All right, Zeb, so let's take one of our hard left turns. We'll get into Hedera Gaming. Can you tell us about the FaZe Clan and what they're doing with Realm?
Yeah, so FaZe Clan are the biggest gaming organization in the world. They're listed, they started on Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 1, I believe. Became very famous as a trick-shotting team on YouTube. They were the first real successful gaming team alongside Optic. They went even further beyond Optic, who were the biggest at the time. They moved into other games. They became YouTubers. They became vloggers. And they became an entertainment studio alongside a gaming studio or gaming a team organization. And so they're each of their streamers, they have sort of millions of followers. They get millions of views. They get millions of live viewers. And so FaZe Nicker Max, I believe his name, I don't know quite how you pronounce his name, but he's one of their big streamers. He's got 2 million followers on Twitter. And this week he said that he's been playing Realm, i.e. the esports platform leveraging the Hedera consensus service for data integrity on Apex Legends. And if you just go through Realm's profile at the moment, they have got so many new followers. They've got the biggest streamers in the world from Apex Legends. They've got FaZe Clan. They've got people who are putting up clips who are getting 500 likes a tweet. They seem to have accelerated so much in the last 2 weeks. And like we said last week, this isn't Web3 audience they're attracting. It's Web2 who are being taken into this Trojan horse of the consensus servers and catapulted into Web3 without even realizing it. And so, as you made the correlation that Rob said, that enterprises won't even know they're using the Hedera ledger, I think the same thing's going to happen. But when, for instance, something like Lethos launches and they find out it's got NFTs and they're upset that it's got NFTs, but then we go, actually, you've been using the consensus service all this time, which is also blockchain technology, that's going to be the light bulb moment. Gaming on Hedera is looking great. Realm has taken off. I think this is probably our biggest retail Web 2 application or Web 2.5 application so far. And I'm sure that's only going to keep accelerating. So great work there from the Realm team.
Yeah, and Karateka is also doing well. They're affiliated with Karate Combat. I saw them engaging with our community a fair amount. And Cosmium has some stuff as well, right?
Cosmium, of course, is the AAA game, 6 years in development, that famously migrated from Solana to Hedera. And they've teamed up with something called the Kings League to give away 3,000 in-game NFTs, which you'll be able to use within the Cosmium universe. So what is the Kings League? The Kings League is the fastest growing sports league in Spain. They are also the most viewed live event that TikTok has ever seen. They saw 600,000 unique viewers for when Ronaldinho was playing. It was created by Gerard Piqué, who is one of the former star defenders of Barcelona and Man United. And within this league, there is a team called Cunisport. And Cunisport, their captain is Aguero, who played for Manchester City, one of the biggest and greatest teams in the world at the moment. And within this team, they have a kit sponsor with Cosmium. So Kuni Sports, every game, they have the Cosmium logo on their shorts so that everyone can see that when someone's scoring, post-match review, so on and so forth. So 2 million views was what they saw at their peak in the final. They sold out FC Barcelona, which is over 95,000 physical seats, and they have partnered with Cosmium. And so just in general, that's a big partnership for them. And I hope more of where that came from, and maybe even something like ticketing down the line. I think that'd be fantastic to see. Obviously, that's me speculating, but I'd like to see something like that occur for, an up-and-coming sports league to move into something like NFT ticketing. I think this would be the perfect avenue. So we'll see on that front. I've got no idea. That's speculation, but just in terms of sponsorship, a great deal.
And while we're talking about Cosmium, they did a gossip about gossip with Zenobia. So I grabbed some of the highlights. Check it out.
And why did you decide that you needed DLT or blockchain functionality as part of this game?
Well, first of all, the games like this needs a lot of transaction. Players need to do trades, like sell in-game items. For example, we already have in Web2 games like CSGO, where players are trading their skins, right? And we needed a DLT for that. So we need to register those transactions in our game backend, and then to make it secure and fast, we'll use the DLT so we don't have fraud or cheating in the trading system.
So players can have a greater trust in the game, greater transparency in terms of knowing what they've done has been recorded is really true.
Yeah, exactly. And also I want to say a fun fact. In CSGO, they estimated that all in-game items in CSGO, it's over $2 billion.
What is CSGO?
Counter-Strike. Sorry.
So there's a lot of real world dollars at stake. There's a lot of real world value at stake in these games, right? And if you are a player, it sounds like you want to know the veracity of those transactions. You want to be able to prove that you've earned things and that the system is recording them accurately.
As well, in CSGO, players are trading their in-game assets, but legally, they can't do it. That's illegal, actually. That's like the black market in CSGO. But with the Web3 features, you're enabling the players to do that legally. So they really own the assets. In Counter-Strike, they don't really own the assets. That's a problem in Web2 games.
Yeah, there's and you certainly want to keep track of that ownership and be able to demonstrate it and show its provenance, et cetera. Okay, so you did not start out building on Hedera. Tell us a little bit about your journey in developing the game.
We focus on developing the game first. We thought of adding Web3 features because the most important thing of the game is to make it fun. That's why we had in mind that, first of all, we need to focus on gameplay and then focus on Web3 features to increase the fun and the gameplay. And that's why we look for a blockchain that suits us out. We found first Solana, but then we found Hedera, their ecosystem, which they help us a lot. Hedera has been great to us. They show us different partners, so we can work with them. For example, with Hashback, we were working with them to give more features to the players, to make it easier. Some influencers there that we show the game, they're very interested in our game, and that's a very good surprise for us. For example, a partner called Kuni Sport, which is led by Kun Agüero, the legend of Manchester City and Barcelona. They partner with us.
And how has the integration been so far in terms of, integrating that sort of back-end functionality with Hedera?
So far, it's been easy. We're doing the Hedera NFTs right now, for example, and the developers, they are not having a lot of trouble, actually. I don't have a lot of knowledge about the technical side, but my developers told me that right now, they're not having any issues in implementing those features.
As you look out over the next 6 to 12 months, what should folks be looking for from Cosmium?
To 6 to 12 months, for sure, we'll have the closed beta and the open beta. which will need the Hedera community to help us and give us feedback.
All right, Zep. So before we get into network analysis, I'd like to cover one more blog post that was put out by the HBAR Foundation, and that was on aid tech. Can you give us some more information?
Yeah, I mean, to understand aid tech, I think you need to be cognizant of the early promise of blockchain technology. You know, we saw chains like Cardano rise into the top 5 on the premise of banking the bankless. You know, they had this narrative that attracted a huge user base, which was that they were actively going to bank the bankless or the underrepresented in Africa. You know, bring financial services to those who aren't supported by banks. And the issue that we saw following this grandiose statement was that chains like Cardano and a lot of others couldn't meet the mark in terms of scalability and stability. A chain that forks every 6 or 7 months or can only do 300 TPS, whatever it is, cannot support the financial infrastructure for a demographic as big as, say, 40% of the unbanked in the Philippines or whatever it might be. And what we've seen with Hedera is in the last sort of 3 months, we've seen this narrative really start to play out. You know, we saw YPay, the biggest fintech in the Caribbean, come out and say that they were going to link Africa and the Caribbean or link all the islands of the Caribbean under the Y-coin stablecoin. And so what this did was enable cross-border transactions without the intermediaries, the banking intermediaries, or the fees and inefficiencies associated with those institutions. It allowed them to bypass them and then basically join all of these islands under one currency so that anyone working on a different island can send money back and vice versa. And all it required is a smartphone, which of course more people have smartphones than banks. And so we are seeing this narrative mature. We're seeing Hedera step up to the plate. We're seeing, various reasons for that. The speed, the fact it uses 1,000 times less energy than Visa, the ABFT credentials, the governing council, and so on and so forth. And this now leads us to AidTech. And AidTech has just as many accolades as YPay, which is to say a lot. AidTech was chosen as a Financial Times digital champion, the Financial Times being one of the biggest financial reporting institutions in the world. We saw their CEO, Joseph Thompson. He was awarded Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the HBAR Foundation. He received that award at Davos 2020 from the World Economic Forum. We saw the UN Sustainable Development Goal award him the Pioneer for Blockchain Technology. And so we're seeing another massive caliber of use case emerge here on Hedera. So where does Hedera come into this? So throughout Asia, it's estimated that 44% of adults in the Philippines and 51% of adults in Indonesia are unbanked. So AidTech want to create a wallet on Hedera that facilitates these underbanked people with things like verifiable credentials, things with like digital identities and security enforced by zero-knowledge proofs. And so within this like all-encompassing wallet, users will be able to have their own sort of on-chain credit portfolio, on-chain credit profile, whereby they can access financial services such as loans, insurance, and credit-based products that they wouldn't be able to before because they couldn't have that access to banks. So for me, this is, again, building on what YPay did in terms of serving the underserved. And it's just another great step of Hedera realizing this narrative of banking the bankless, which we hadn't seen so far. And, I think, again, this is just wind in our sails for moving in that direction and the maturity of this market with Hedera at the helm.
Yeah, this is one of the things that holds the most hope for DLT in general for me is unlocking that, I say this all the time, but unlocking the economic potential of literally billions of people throughout the world. And the amount of prosperity that could bring for everyone is amazing. And if all that is built on Hedera, mind-blowing. I mean, it's going to be amazing. All right, let's go ahead and get into some network analysis. So over the past 24 hours, we have had about 65 million transactions. So we're humming along right about 700 transactions per second. So really impressive there. And time to finality is still under 5 seconds. So really good there as well. No big spikes in account creation this week, but it's still holding pretty strong. And NFTs have been a hot topic this week. In the top 10, we have Ashfall, we have the naming service, we see ElfU is always in there, HBAR Pandas, Wizards, and so forth. But the big thing is some of the events that we're seeing. And of course, we have NFT NYC. What have you seen come out of that?
Yeah, so we've had a huge amount of representation. We saw Hedera come through again and put up, our incredible ecosystem across Times Square. We've seen the Dead Pixels, we've seen the Hungry Baboons, we've seen a lot of our NFT ecosystem up there in New York. And that, of course, is a part of New York NFT NYC 2023. Beyond our physical presence there as a team, beyond the Hedera there, beyond the Times Square being lit up, we've also had representation from our ecosystem partners. So we had This Is Zoop, of course, the celebrity card trading game created by the founders of OnlyFans. They were there talking about Hedera. They're talking about their own platform. We also had Hyperdream, who we haven't heard from in a while, created by Freeverse and Hyperreal, who, had the rights to the Notorious B.I.G., to Paul McCartney for these digital twins. We're going to hear a lot more from them soon. But again, they're on the floor there at NFT NYC talking about a Hedera product, which has been great to see. We also had, some of our projects. We had Hungry Baboons there talking. I believe Orbis was there, Orbis 86, the cross-chain platform by Sonia. We also had Developer DAO, the big meetup there between Hedera and Developer DAO, packs out room, and just all around it seems that NFT NYC really had a lot of Hedera representation. So it's exciting times there.
Yeah, and going up I-95 a bit, going to another event, we had that SIF event going on in Boston, the hackathon that's really focused on, refi applications and things like that. So we're excited to see what comes out of that.
Definitely, we had Jonathan there, Jonathan Rakov on a panel. We had Wes on a panel. We also had Evercity on a panel, and all of this works into the ongoing hackathon, which I believe has actually just ended. So just come to the end of it. And what I've heard from Wes is that there's a few great projects that emerged on Hedera, but in particular, a really, really exciting one. It's not a massive enterprise, but what they've done is created another sort of open source library for our Guardian, a framework within our Guardian that Wes believes is a really strong competitor there. So exciting for us to cover that. I'm sure we'll have a blog coming out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's exciting for sure. And of course, probably one of the biggest conferences around DLT in the world is Consensus, and that's coming up in a few weeks. Twigital, my company, is going to be down there, and we're going to have a booth set up that people can come and bring their physical objects, or we're going to have a few physical objects there that we're going to be able to Twigitize on Hedera. So that's going to be exciting to see. And if you want to come to an AMA, we're going to have one on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern on Twigital, just to kind of explain exactly what we're doing and how we're going to come to market. And with that, we'll go ahead and get into DeFi. Looking at DeFi Llama, SaucerSwap total value locked is up a bit at about $23 million. Pangolin is flat at about $9 million, and HeliSwap lost a little to $3.3 million. Taking a look at the farming rewards on SaucerSwap's popular trading pairs, HBAR is still at 14%, 33% on HBAR Sauce, and 40% on HBAR USDC. Moving over to Pangolin, HBAR is at 25%, 94% on HBAR USDC, and HBAR PBAR has dropped to 270%. I have experienced some UI issues on Pangolin and have heard the same reports from some others, and this was addressed on Alternative Money Mondays hosted by the Walla Wallet team, so here's a quick clip.
Did have some users chime in, when I was kind of poking around asking questions. You had a few users say, UI issues, grumble, user interface, when resolved, when fixed. So let's touch on that just a little bit. So what are some of the issues that have been popping up for Pangolin? And believe me, we understand. There's another one of those ongoing battles. But yeah, if you could just kind of touch a little bit on that.
All of our UI issues have been front-end related. We kind of have a big focus on at the contract level being secure. Sure. And especially with these multi-chain deployments, that's why you tend to see more issues with the UI. We'd rather it be UI issues than contract level issues. Your money is there. So that's one of the issues we have, because it's hard to connect and see either discrepancies in the amount of rewards you get, or your TVL, or the swaps loading slowly. Things like that are tough, because if you're not as familiar with the contract level, you would think you would be worried instantly that your money might be gone, and especially with the amount of hacks that happen. So it's totally understandable, and it's something that we're working on. We've had issues with our subgraph, which is kind of how we pool all the data on token prices and the things that would display a lot of the stuff you see on the UI. And it's been a struggle and we've had issues on other networks as well with that. We've been building like a bespoke solution for it, or trying to figure out exactly how we're going to manage that. And our team's been working on it for months now. We're slowly working on it. I understand users have problems, and I always encourage people to join our Discord because it's like a direct like line into our team. If they have issues, talk about it. Generally, funds are always safe. It's just we have problems with the way that rewards are displayed, and sometimes there's some definite speed issues. But things we're working on. I'm hoping, like, the real goal for me is, if by the end of this year, going into 2024, we feel like we've made an insanely secure solution, we're building infrastructure, and we've like hammered out and made one of the best and like quickest interfaces out there, would be awesome. And I think we have a good foundation now. We're just really finding the important bugs and working through them, but it takes time.
Moving over to the crypto and HBAR market, we had a heck of a week in crypto, with Bitcoin breaking $30,000 for the first time in nearly a year. And it looks like a pretty typical crypto rally. Bitcoin is the leading first mover, and Ethereum was next. If these gains hold, I'd expect a strong move in alts like HBAR next. But that's a big if. There's no doubt that this move has been a strong one. And hopefully Bitcoin has flipped 29,000 to support. But the monetary conditions are pretty tight, and many expect a recession. That said, I'm cautiously optimistic, but also prepared for a move in either direction. Of course, this isn't financial advice, but if we do have a significant drop, I'd probably tap into stablecoins I currently have working in DeFi to add more HBAR. And if we do go on a run and that capital that's in Bitcoin and ETH flows into mid-cap alts, well, I'm perpetually in a state of being irresponsibly long on HBAR, so I'd love to see HBAR go on a tear. We've seen similar dynamics play out many times in the past. Looking back to December of 2020, I was pounding the table as Bitcoin blew through its previous highs of 20,000 as I watched HBAR languish at 3 cents. And again, I knew if Bitcoin could hold or further those gains, eventually mid-caps would go on a run. In the following few months, we saw Bitcoin have a great run of more than 100%, but HBAR rallied more than 15x to over 40 cents. Again, many of the alts are lagging, but that isn't surprising. At the time of recording, looking at the chart, HBAR is sitting between 6.6 and 6.7 cents, with support around 6.3 cents and expected resistance at 6.8 cents. All right, Zeb, that's pretty much all we have. Is there anything else you'd like to pass on?
Well, I think, this week has been the week of digital identity, decentralized identity for Hedera. We've seen Hedera join the Fido Alliance alongside some of the biggest companies in the world as the only layer one, as the only network really within the crypto sphere. We also saw AidTech emerge with all their amazing rewards, with all their Davos links, with all their incredible ongoing work and their recognition from the Financial Times. We saw the Metamask snaps with Acor and beyond. We've just seen a serious use case that we know is there on Hedera, which Brett came out with a publication at Davos, which really highlighted all of this. And it seems to me anyway that we really have another UK use case on the block, which Paul Madsen is actually heading on the foundation front, which is say no more, the man himself that co-authored the white paper with Lehman. There's a huge amount to go on there, and we've got the team, we've got the partners, we've got the credibility, we've got the recognition coming from the top down. And so for me, definitely an ecosystem to look out for on Hedera, and I'm sure it's only going to accelerate. So great news there, definitely.
Yeah. Things are looking brighter in the crypto space, and certainly for the Hedera ecosystem as well. Next week, I think we're going to do a collaboration instead of doing our own Twitter space. We're probably going to do a collaboration with some other teams. We'll try to get some information on that out shortly. Be sure to swing by at 4 p.m. Eastern to get on the Twitter space with Twigital to ask a few questions and see what we're going to do down there at Consensus. That's all we've got. We'll see you next week.
Cheers, Brandon.